Thanks for checking out this movie review video. This is for the 1992 Mexican horror film The Demon Rat. Now, specifically, this is eco-horror, which, yes, it is a subgenre of horror films where it's just basically ecological issues create really terrible horror situations for human beings. And this movie goes very hard at that. This is not subtext at all. And when you watch, obviously this is a Vinegar Syndrome release, by the way, so it looks pretty good. But when you watch the special features on this, they do have a interview with the director, Ruben Galindo Jr., who I also watched his interview on the Grave Robbers disc that I ended up getting, and I do have a review coming out for that as well, if it's not already out. But he kind of goes on this diatribe talking about, what really inspired the Demon Rat, and a lot of it did have to do with his kind of concerns about the way the planet was headed, the way humans were acting, how we're kind of polluting things and making things worse for ourselves, and that type of stuff. So obviously this film, first of all, fits into eco-horror overtly. It's very in your face. There's no subtext to this one. And second of all, is still applicable today in that sense. Now, obviously, this is a very kind of ridiculous movie, which, I'll talk plenty about, but hearing what he has to say about it and what kind of went into making this film was very interesting, and one of my favorite things about the releases that Vinegar Syndrome puts out. The movie itself has a little bit let down because it is called The Demon Rat, or it's also called Mutants of the Year 2000. So yeah, but having it called primarily The Demon Rat, I wished there was a lot more Demon Rat in it, or Mutant Rat as I'll just refer to it, because that's kind of more accurate. But apparently, based off the interview with Ruben Galindo Jr., that's not what the title initially was. So it really, because the studio changed it to The Demon Rat, it really just was pointing more at there's going to be a lot of rat in this. So it was very misleading. So another thing he had said is that basically the rat, because of this title, seems like the rat is the main bad guy, and to a degree the rat is. But when you actually watch the movie, you eventually figure out, as we'll end up talking about, that Roberto, the head of Roma Industries, is actually the real bad guy, because he's the one who basically ended up creating the Demon Rat because he's greedy and he's a terrible human being. He's super amoral. So let's talk more about the Demon Rat, which didn't love it, but I enjoyed it enough. I'll just say that. So again, directed by Ruben Galindo Jr., who also did Cemetery of Terror, Don't Panic, and Grave Robbers, which I own all of those, and already did one for Grave Robbers. I will do Cemetery of Terror and Don't Panic at some point. Written by Galindo as well as Jose Movellan, who also wrote La Lettre de la Mafia, El Sociopata Asesino, like psychopathic assassin, and Un Hombre Salvaje, just to name a few. There actually wasn't a whole lot of planning that went in this film, and that's something that Ruben Galindo Jr. said himself in the interview on the special features, is that they literally went from completion of the script to filming. They didn't storyboard anything, and you can kind of tell it. He says that this movie was extremely low budget. He was mainly just kind of making this movie for fun with his friends in a sense, and you can kind of tell it. And honestly, knowing that going into the film, or knowing that having seen the film after the fact, it kind of increases the value of it a little bit more, because this was just for fun. There was a lot of passion that went into this, so I do appreciate that. The intro music in the very beginning is like corny intense, but it's very much of its time from 1992. That's kind of the intense music that was used then, is corny intense, and it just kind of sets the scene for, like, they want you to be like, dun dun dun, things are bad, things are going to be worse, it's going to be horrible. So yeah, I do like how they made the outside look really hazy, like it's highly polluted, because that really makes you understand the need for all these characters to wear these gas masks, because obviously the idea is the environment is already so polluted that you literally can't be outside without wearing a gas mask, otherwise it would end up killing you. Over some time maybe, or maybe more immediately, I don't know. So I like the fact that they kind of shot it where it's like overexposed when it comes to light sources outside. That gives it that kind of like fuzzy, hazy look to it. So I think that works really well. Typically, that's not something you want in films, But for this film, it actually worked in its favor because it helps with that kind of polluted look. So I like that. Irina's job looks like a nightmare teaching those kids because they were out of control. Let's be honest, some really out of control kids. But in the end, like her job and Axel's job, which is obviously how they met and started falling in love with each other, it doesn't really matter. It doesn't really matter that much, except for the fact that they're kind of showing you that I think Axel is really trying to give information to the youth, to a new generation about what is happening to the environment, to the planet that humans are doing, and maybe hoping that if he can have an impact on them, then they can actually grow up and make the change that he feels is needed in order to kind of save the planet. So, obviously very intentional on Galindo's part. Kids that are young are learning about the free trade agreement in this. I kind of think, I mean, maybe that was the right age, but I kind of feel like at their age, how old they looked, I was not learning about the free trade agreement. I don't know if that is a common thing in Mexico, and maybe we're just dumb in America. I don't know, or North America, the United States, because that includes Canada. I don't want to say America, because that's a lot of countries. I don't want to say North America, because that's a few countries. So yeah, but anyway, you know what I'm saying. Mr. Cervantes, aka Roberto, and I'll refer to him as that going forward, definitely looks like an amoral CEO who just publicly says whatever to kind of, quell anxieties about what the company's doing, but really doesn't mean any of that stuff. It's all just doublespeak, and he's just a terrible person. And that character, they don't play him like reserved. They don't kind of be like, oh, he seems like, oh, maybe he could be kind of a personable guy, but then later on you find out, oh, surprise, he's actually a terrible person. They play him straight up terrible from the get-go. Also, just the look that he has going on makes him look super bad. And they go really hard on it, like, sexually harassing his secretary, trying to assault Irina when he comes upon her late. Well, he's terrorizing her later. And the other one, the fact that you get information from Irina at some point where she tells Axel that Roberto actually would beat her up when they were in their relationship. So yeah, they go very hard on him just being bad, which I think was, over the top. You don't really need to do it that way. But this was the early 90s. Kind of a lot of what we were doing with movies then. They go very hard at the ecological catastrophe angle early on with the smog, the nuclear power plant, the trash strewn all over the place, and the talk of animal species disappearing. Obviously, that's something that Axel is talking to his students about. So again, trying to have that impact to try and make them change, be the change that he wants in society when they get older to be able to do that. But yeah, again, they go super hard. Again, not subtext in this. It is eco-horror in your face, whether you like it or not. The discovery of the giant fly lets you know exactly what's coming in case the title didn't already give that away, basically. I mean, either of the titles, really. The Demon Rat or Mutants of the Year 2000. I think Mutants of the Year 2000, which was the original title, I think makes it seem even more like, okay, we know what we were getting into. But then you get this giant fly and you're like, okay, yes, radioactive, this plutonium that's being dumped by the Romo industry. Romo Industries is what's causing these creatures to grow, and obviously that's what ends up happening to the Demon Rat. What would have happened to people too? And also, what would have happened to Axel, who was at one point hiding in this garbage that just had plutonium in it? Just saying, we don't find that out. It is funny how Arnold the dog gets scolded for making a mess of Irina's house, yet the company that her ex runs is making a mess of the planet. I just found that to be a little bit of an interesting dichotomy. It's not hypocritical when it comes to Irina, because you do get the sense later on that she really didn't have any idea what was happening with the company. And you get the sense that it was her father's company and she was interested in taking it over and running it properly the way he was. You just find out that it's basically Roberto's a terrible person and he wants to save money and make more money himself. So he's looking to cut costs at the expense of polluting the environment, causing this ecological disaster, making these gigantic critters, which, obviously he doesn't necessarily know that that's what it's going to do, but Or does he? Because there is that one part where there's the garbage bag and something's moving in it, and he's like, I told you to get rid of this, pour acid on it. So I think actually that might point to the fact that he does know what it would end up doing. It definitely seems like during this rat removal project, Irina and Axel will most likely end up falling in love. Now, I didn't think it would take as long as it did for them to actually fall in love, because they plant very early on the idea that they are interested in each other. Then we finally get that, romance sex scene much later, but it took a lot longer than I thought it would to get to that. I thought they would be kind of bonding and coming together and getting it on much earlier. Just saying. Nasty when Roberto just forces himself on his secretary, and then that's also kind of on the tail of Irina saying that he was beating her before. So those are the moments where it's just like pushing things even further with Roberto just being awful. Irina didn't exactly jump to action to help Arnold in the middle of the night when he was yelping in distress, so of course she would end up finding Arnold dead. She didn't seem at all to be in any hurry to actually try and save her dog, because that very distressed yelping means trouble. This dog is in distress, and she just kind of like takes her sweet time just trying to find him, and then she's surprised when he's dead. I was just like, terrible. I love the scene of Axel hiding in the radioactive garbage as Roberto's cronies roll boxes of waste down the hill. Boxes, by the way, that you could tell did not have anything in them because of the way they roll. It's just like effortless. That scene was just kind of funny to me because he just like finds this terrible toxic waste and then just like jumps in it. And that's why I was wondering, like I said earlier, what happens to him after this? We needed a sequel to find out that Axel is actually falling apart, and then it becomes more of like a movie, kind of like body melt type thing. When Axel goes to Irina's house to help with the rat problem, it seems like this dude, Andres, who comes along, who's like a pro, is basically just there to end up getting killed by the mutant rat. Obviously, that is what happens, but we ended up getting a lot more time with Andres kind of doing his thing than I assumed there would be. So I guess good for Andres. Although, and this points to one of the big problems I have with the movie, a lot of like him going around, looking around and setting things up and all that stuff. It just takes too long. A lot of these sequences are just very drawn out and long. And like, you get it when you find out it's a super low budget film. They were just kind of like having fun with it, whatever. But it really messes up the pacing of the movie. And that's kind of one of the big things that made me not like it as much as I potentially could have. I do like how Andres barely tries anything and then resorts to contaminating Irina's entire house to try and suffocate the rat. I thought that was very drastic. He's just like, I'm going to put down these sticky traps. Okay, sticky traps didn't work. Now I'm just going to open all the windows. I'm going to let this horrible pollution in. Never mind the fact that this is just going to contaminate all of her things, her entire house. Like, pretty ridiculous. But it's just funny that he just makes that kind of ridiculous, rash jump in doing things. It lets you believe that he's not really a professional like they said he was if he's making that drastic of a decision. Why does Andres have a gun, though? A, why does he have a gun? B, why does he have a gun specifically with a laser sight on it? Obviously, it's because it would look cooler for the movie, and that gun could be used later after he's already dead, but it doesn't make sense that he would have that. I don't know. Unless he commonly brings guns to shoot rats with. I don't know. I don't know his work practices. I guess so. It is pretty funny when you see the mutant rat as a dude in a hairy suit. That is probably my favorite thing about this movie, is how ridiculous and bad the actual demon rat looks. And for that reason, I just wish he was on screen a lot longer. And my favorite sequence, or my favorite parts of the movie, just end up being when you're seeing more of this demon rat, because he looks so laughably ridiculous that I'm having a lot of fun when he's on screen. It's just so much fun then, and that's one of the other reasons why it was really a letdown to me that there wasn't a lot more of him in there, especially because, like I said, it promises the demon rat, so you're thinking there's going to be a lot of demon rat in here, and there isn't. A bit of an odd way to take things with Roberto and his cronies showing up to terrorize Irina, because it seems like maybe more focus should have been paid should have been put on the rat itself. Yeah, that's when I was going through my, wait a minute, there isn't a whole lot of rat in this one. Yeah, and then it just becomes very clear at that point where you're like, oh, okay, like we're not really meant to believe that the big danger is the rat as much. I mean, it is a danger, but Roberto is clearly more of the danger. So this movie kind of is a little bit Walking Dead-ish before Walking Dead, where it's kind of like all, big problems in the world, but humans are the worst part of it. Although a lot of movies have done that before, so guess not. Just saying. The fight sequence in the house has almost nauseating wild camera work. Like the weird, like, askew angles, how they change so often, how shaky the camera work is when the fighting's going on between Axel and Roberto and the crony. It's just like it becomes almost too much for me, and like, a lot of camera movement like that can make me nauseous. Like, I hate watching Cloverfield. I can't watch that movie after seeing it once. Like, it was hard for me to get through that. It really made me nauseous. But this one doesn't quite get there, but it gets kind of close. I did like the glue trap that ends up getting stuck to Roberto's mask during the fight. I thought that was a funny, cool, like, small thing to kind of add in there, and how he has to really fight it to get it off, and you see all that goo that kind of is like with it as it's being pulled off, and then there's a bunch still stuck. That was cool. And finally, the rat ends up striking, but it looks more like it's just flailing at Roberto rather than actually trying to kill him. Obviously, it is trying to kill him, but it's just the way it's shot. It didn't look all that convincing. You just see, like, these scenes of, like, the rat just kind of, like, flailing its arms, and it doesn't even look like they're even close to Roberto. So you're just like, okay, just kind of flailing. But, I'll take as much rat as I can get. It did take longer than I expected to get an Irina and Axel love scene. Again, already said that one. The best part of this movie is the fight that Axel has with the mutant rat, because that's the moment where you get to see, for the most prolonged portion of the film, how ridiculous this demon rat looks, and it is glorious. It is glorious. I just really wish they would have gone more all in on scenes with this demon rat. Yeah. And I also like that, like, the bottom of his body is, like, larger than the top of his body, which is, like, rat-like. So they kind of, like, were going for a little bit more realism as far as what would a giant rat actually look like. So I thought that was fun. Kind of an abrupt ending to this, though. It was fine for what it was, but it was kind of an abrupt ending. That's when, the demon rat, like, flies off the balcony, and then it's on the ground and he gets shot. And then it was, like, done. I thought there was going to be, Axel and Irina talking to each other, or embracing each other, or having sex again. I don't know, something like that. But no, they were just like, okay, cut it. There are a lot of portions of not much happening, unfortunately, in this movie. So that's one of the big reasons that I'm not going to rate it as highly. So rating it two ways, obviously. First, as a film in the pantheon of all films, I'm going to give this 1 out of 5 stars. But as a so bad it's good film, I'm going to give it 2.5. I'm kind of in the middle as far as so bad it's good. Like, I liked a bunch of stuff about it. I didn't like a bunch of stuff about it. Mainly the pacing. But those are just my thoughts. And now is where I would like your thoughts on the Demon Rat. Go ahead and put it in the comments. Give me a sentence or two telling me why you do not like it or are indifferent about it. Not, you don't need too much, but also do me a favor, hit subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. I do greatly appreciate that. That is your way to repay me for all this free content. If you like one video I put out, this one included, subscribe. Pay me back that way. You can do the like thing if you want to try and help out my videos with the algorithm on YouTube. You can also hit the notification bell button if you want to know when I'm putting up new videos, which I'm doing 3 a week at this point. But regardless, thank you so much for checking this out, and until next time, keep it brutal.